Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. It seems like a long time ago that we started Operation Rio Grande. It's just been we're moving up on 3 months now, and in that very first press conference when we announced the beginning of Operation Rio Grande, we talked about 3 phases. The first phase was the law enforcement phase. Again, it was so important to try to establish the rule of law here in this area, try to get rid of those that were preying upon our most vulnerable, and trying to remove the open-air drug culture that was happening on the streets of Salt Lake City. The second phase of this was the treatment phase. We're well into phase 2 of that. We had a big announcement last week about the Medicaid waiver, and that was critical to moving forward, getting more treatment beds, and we're very excited about where that is headed. But I will tell you that of all the phases I've been the most excited about, it's phase 3, and it's the dignity of work phase. As we've talked to social scientists, as we've talked to our caseworkers in this area, as we've talked to those that are providing the social services, Catholic Community Services, and the Road Home, and many of our other service providers, we all recognize that critical to overcoming homelessness, critical to overcoming addiction, critical to just living the American dream is the dignity of work. Work is important to everything that we do. It's important to who we are, how our own vision of ourselves. It's important to self-esteem, and there is dignity in all work. And so in order to truly help people to get off the streets, to truly help people find joy and happiness in their lives, to bring dignity to who they are and what they do, we have to be able to get them opportunities to participate in work, opportunities to be able to climb the ladder, opportunities to get paid for the work that they're doing, and opportunities for them to participate in and contribute to the American dream and to what makes America great. When our state was founded, and this is you see this, our state motto is industry. We believe in work here, and that's a symbol of Utah, industry. We believe in working hard. We believe in giving people opportunities, and that's what this is all about. As I was thinking through this, as we were planning together, putting our teams together to help on each of these phases, there was one person that really came to mind, and I made a phone call on a whim. I'm a busy person. A lot of people up here are busy, but maybe the busiest person in the entire state is Steve Starks. And I called Steve and said, "Hey, I know you have a million things on your plate, but I have a favor to ask of you," and talked through what we were trying to accomplish here. We talked about the dignity of work. He got very excited. He didn't hesitate. He said, "I'm willing to take this on." So I'm excited I'm going to turn the mic over to him here in just a second. But there's something symbolic about what's happening today. Speaker Hughes will be coming, and when he does, he'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit about this. But this room that you're in right now was kind of where all of this started. We called this the war room for a long time. There was a lot going on here. Literally right across the street, there was a drug trade going on every day. I came in the first day I was in here. I watched at least 10 drug deals go down under that tree, not 100 feet from where we are right now, and in about a half-hour time frame. And we had cop cars parked out front, and it didn't matter. You can see there are no drug deals going on across the street right now. But the best part of all of this is the war room is no longer the war room. This is the work room. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about what's going to be happening in this very space. So we are excited to move on to phase 3. And without further ado, I'll turn the microphone over to Steve Starks.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here today, and honored to be able to stand in front of a great group of people that have been instrumental over the last 3 months as we've studied these issues. I want to acknowledge a couple people in particular. Advantage Services is here, a partner that's been doing great work around Rio Grande Street for a while. Catholic Community Services is here. When the Lieutenant Governor called and asked if I would help out on this, one of the things that was a challenge is that we had a lot of people that stepped forward and wanted to participate in some form or fashion. And what we didn't want to do was create too big of a committee or an unwieldy approach to this, and so we've kept it small. But Scott Howell has been a big part of that. Joseph Graney, who's here, has been a big part of that. David Garbett, who wasn't here, Randy Shumway. And then a friend who I've met through this process is Mo Egan, and you'll hear from him in a moment. He's been part of our group and provided invaluable perspective. When we began this process, we first of all wanted to just understand the issues and understand what services were already in place. We didn't want to replicate anything that was already out there. Recognizing that this is going to be a long-term approach, that this is something that's going to be done one person at a time, we acknowledge at the beginning here that we're going to learn through this process. We're going to be humble. There's not a cookie-cutter solution or a one-size-fits-all solution to these challenges. And so we're going to work, we're going to be flexible, we're going to learn, and then we're going to adapt and continue to move forward. And success will be measured one person at a time. That's really important that we understand that to begin with. The first thing that we wanted to accomplish and that we're announcing today is that in order to deal with this, we really have to focus on one individual at a time. And so in order to do that, we need to get to know them. And so Workforce Services, our partners through this process who have been tremendous, they have launched an initiative to have 4 employment counselors beginning this week around Rio Grande Street. These individuals are going to be critical, and many of them are here with us today. But they're going to go one-on-one and meet these individuals. They're going to find out a little bit about their backgrounds, their vocational histories, and they're going to talk about what they want to do in the future. They're going to build an individual profile that's going to help and to be able to determine where we can go from there. Based on that assessment with those individuals, we really see that they can fall into one of 3 categories. The first category may be people that are not ready to transition to employment right now because they have to overcome substance abuse or they have to deal with other challenges in their lives before they can transition. There are services and people that can help in those with those individuals, but recognizing that's going to be a longer term approach. The second group of people are those that may not be ready today, but in short order they can get themselves ready to be able to get back into the workforce. We want to create for that group of people what we're calling dignity activities. Whether it's internships, whether it's a job-a-day program, whether it's just asking them to do things that they can do within their power that will restore dignity into their lives and help them get into a position where they can get closer to being able to transition successfully into the workforce. And then the last category are those individuals that are ready to work now. And when that's the case, we want to connect them directly with workforce services and employers that are ready to hire them and make that transition quickly. And so that approach is really important as we move forward, understanding where the individual is, assigning them a person that can work with them, and then and following up long term. The other thing that we are going to do in this space here is we want to change the daily routine of people's lives. And so starting in December, we're going to start to have morning devotionals in this space. This is going to be voluntary. It's going to be optional for participation. But if you think about the circumstances, and Mo will talk here in a moment about what happens when you find yourself homeless, it's easy to settle into that routine. We want to break that routine. We want to create healthy habits. And so we're going to develop morning devotionals where they can come over here, interfaith-based or not even spiritual in nature at all in some cases, but just something to give them hope, perhaps to create a spark that they want to go and achieve more or participate in something that they haven't done. Following up on that, we're going to start to do morning workshops. These workshops will be led by facilitators that can train on a specific skill or that they can bring a different perspective. They can connect them with industries and give them training that they need. And then after an individual, we'll track who comes and participates in these things. And if you've come to workshops and you've expressed interest and you've taken initiative, then we can start to graduate these people through more and more responsibilities. Job-a-day programs, as we talked about. One of the things that we're really excited about is what we're calling dream teams. It's government that we're working with, so we need to have a good acronym for everything. And so DREAM Team stands for Dignity Restored Through Employment and Mentoring. And we're going to invite the business community to come and be our partners through this process. And if they have work that we can use, that they can partner with homeless individuals that have shown the initiative to want to help, we want to do that. Our first Dream Team partner is Oakland Construction. Starting as soon as next week, Oakland Construction has agreed to come and work on a project around Rio Grande, and they're actually going to take 10 individuals that are currently finding themselves homeless, and they're going to work together side by side, and they're going to accomplish some of the construction work that needs to be done. Through that process, we hope that that's going to restore dignity into those individuals' lives, and perhaps there will be connections made so that they can then transition into a construction job and re-enter the workforce. And so we're excited about that and other employers that will participate in this. The last thing I'll say is that this is a big lift. This isn't something that we can hold a press conference, that we can announce a few initiatives and feel good and move on our way. This is going to take the work of Utahns coming together. And again, success may be measured one person at a time. But when you see people that have come out of these circumstances and have been successful, then it will have been well worth the work. One of those people that fits that description perfectly is Mo Egan. Mo is a manager at the Other Side Academy. He's been an invaluable member of our committee, given his background and perspective. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mo, and he's going to share some thoughts with us.
Thanks a lot. My name is Maurice Egan, and I'm truly blessed to be a part of this process. And thank you very much. I believe the way that to individual self-dignity is through sustained employment. I was an addict, homeless, and unemployed for many years. The problem is that a lot of time I was still a practicing addict. I've been on both sides of these issues, and I have an idea of what it takes to overcome. As an addict, living in San Francisco, I was offered housing. The problem was that I was still a practicing addict. I turned that apartment into a drug den. Constant drug activity in and out of that apartment 24/7. And I was eventually evicted, homeless again. I was also offered employment, a great job, as a practicing addict. After a couple paychecks, I began to show up late, no show, and was eventually fired. My experience has been that with social services, with the best and the greatest of intentions, when we refer this population to housing and employment without addressing some of the core issues of those individuals, we run the risk of creating a revolving door model. When I finally was in a position and when I was finally ready to make a real change in my life, engaging in work and establishing a solid work ethic made a huge difference for me. Once I got into the workflow, showing up on time, being accountable, and becoming self-supportive, I began to believe in myself again. Housing, employment, and a team of coaches and counselors were available to me until I was strong enough to make it on my own. Going forward, I think it's very important that we take a look at each individual's needs. Is it mental health? Is it drug addiction? Is it homelessness? Or joblessness? One thing I know for sure is that one size does not fit all. And like Steve said, some may be ready to go to work today. Some may need a team of life coaches and counseling. There are some people that are homeless that made a few bad decisions, maybe a divorce or a plant or something closed down. They need a job and some housing right away, and they can make it. For some like myself, an addict for many years, it took a rigorous program. And at the completion of that program, thank God that employment and housing and counseling services were available to me. There's nothing worse than being released from jail or prison or graduating from a substance abuse program, and the only housing that's available to you is a drug-infested apartment building or a crack hotel. And so what do you think that person's going to do? It undermines the success of social services. After working with this group, I believe that the governor's team understands these issues and is on the right track to address mental health, substance abuse, and homelessness, clearing a path for sustained employment here in Salt Lake City. Thank you.
You're up.
I made it too. We got a barn burner committee meeting going on up at the Capitol. I couldn't pull myself away from, so sorry for being late. Did you hear Mo? Did you hear this, man? If that isn't authentic, if that doesn't just hit to the core of what this is all about, I don't know what does. It's why this room, when we started, we call it the war room. I needed policymakers to sit in here, and even if it was an issue unrelated to the Rio Grande, and we had to have a leadership meeting or some other policy, I wanted the conclusion of that meeting to look outside these windows. And I wanted to start asking my colleagues who we thought we were even looking at. Did we know people's stories? Did we know what those needs were? And there started our process and the progress that we've made. So this was kind of my war room. As you've heard today and what's announced today, this is going to be a workroom. We're not going to call it that anymore. It's a workroom. We're going to see dignity restored to individuals. We're going to see earned success. We're going to see hope that's going to be provided to people through a combination of private and public partnerships that is unmatched. See, when we sat down here and we tried to learn as much as we could, we heard from people. This is Utah, and there's a lot of big hearts, and there's a lot of people that want to do a lot of things. But a lot of people don't know how. So I would talk to an employer who on their own, in their little silo and in their little world, tried to hire people, tried to make a difference, and it didn't end well. And it made and left that person with an experience that they wouldn't repeat. But we're not going to do it that way. We're going to have life coaches. We're going to have a support system. We're going to have multiple businesses that are working together, and in this partnership that's so critical, making sure that we just build upon success after success. And when we meet with failure, and we will, I'm just going to tell you right now, this isn't, I've said this in every community council meeting I'm at, do not mistake the good news and the good progress that's made as a mission that's been accomplished or a job that's been done. This environment and these challenges change every single day. And we are struggling every day to understand those challenges and adjust to what's happening out there. This group will be doing the same as we begin to find employment opportunities. What makes me most excited about this program is it doesn't contemplate people after a long, arduous journey finally being able to have a job and maybe have a reference. This program is going to take people in whatever circumstance they find themselves in and help them begin to feel the dignity of earned success, whatever that's going to be in whatever circumstance their life allows them to be successful, to be industrious, to start to work and to start to see that they have hope and a path to self-reliance. So thank you for being here. Thank you for, I can't thank enough Steve Starks. This guy, I don't know how he has the time to even do this. I mean, he's running a Jazz, and they're doing great, and he's brought all these partners together. This is what you're seeing in Utah. You're seeing people that don't have the bandwidth for something like this, that are digging deeper and doing more, and we can't say enough, and we can't appreciate them any more than we by saying thank you, and thanks again for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the prepared remarks. We would be willing to take a few questions if you have them. So, seeing none, I should have known better.
Motion to adjourn? Non-favorable motion?
How many individuals does this program have capacity for? How many people do you expect to employ, or what kind of opportunities are out there?
Stephen, you want to talk about that? Yeah. Stephen LISONBEE with Workforce Services.
So, as Steve Starks mentioned, at this point, it's about getting to know each individual. So we didn't design a program around a max capacity. What we did is design a program that could be scalable. So as we get out and start to identify these individuals, sit down with them, know them in their circumstance, we'll wrap around the service and support for them. And as that grows, we'll be equally responsive. We'll pull more and more industry in to support that growth. And so there's not a capacity. We didn't reverse engineer and say, this is who we can help, and that's our limit. Rather, we said, we're going to know the individuals, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
How many companies are expected to help? You mentioned open construction.
Yeah. We're going to ask all of them. We're going to ask employers that have capacity. We know the job market right now is tight, and so people are looking for employees, and so we're going to invite Utahns starting today and companies to come forward, and if they have needs, to work with us. and to be willing to take the commitment, make the commitment. This isn't just a simple come and apply, get a job and move on. In most cases, this is going to be supported employment. There's going to have to be follow-through. There's going to have to be long-term mentorship, and we believe that the business community is willing to do that. And based on the feedback we've had, we expect a lot of employers to come forward and say that they want to do their part because it's good for business and it's good for our community.
Do we know what industries might kind of, is it going to be a lot of construction, you think, or are there others that would also?
I wouldn't limit it just to that, but I think that's a natural one. I think the food services industry, I had an experience a month ago with an individual that I met in the Egan Center, and he had his food handler's permit. And I took him down to a job fair, and they offered him a job because they needed help, and he had a great background for it. And so there's going to be a variety of industries, and I don't think that we can quantify which ones specifically yet.
Jazz?
The company that we took him to was the Arena. And the individual, from a food services standpoint, we were looking to hire people. And so we employ a lot of part-time people in particular. And if there's good fits, then we absolutely will hire individuals, and it will be good for us and good for them.
You said dream team, so I
Let me just add that the Jazz have been very, very good on this, and we appreciate their willingness to lend us Steve and to look for hire. He's being very modest. They've hired a lot of people from that area already and will continue to do so. One of the things I want to point out is that Utahns are incredibly generous, and when we make this call for help, people come running. One of the things we want to be careful of is, and we've seen this in the past, where a company will come in very generously and say, we want 20 people. We'll hire 20 people, and it doesn't turn out well because we haven't had the mentorship, we haven't had the case management around people to help them out. And so what's critical about this, we mentioned the workforce services will be bringing in 4 case workers, and that's just a start. If we need more, we'll bring in more. Those case workers will be working together with mentors with these individuals on a daily basis. So if the employer, we don't want employers to hire 20, we want them to hire 1 or 2 and start there, so that if the employer has a problem, if an employee doesn't show up to work, they don't have to call the employee directly, they call the case manager and the mentor, and then they sit down and work through it, which is going to make it easier for businesses to want to do this because they don't have to assign a person now to kind of manage this. Somebody is doing that for them. And I think that's going to really help the response.
Scott, I wanted to ask you about, you're here from Pioneer Park Coalition, maybe how is Pioneer Park Coalition involved, and do you think businesses from Pioneer Park Coalition would want to participate in this?
As usual, that's a great question. Before I answer that, let me just say I want to thank the governor, the lieutenant governor, the Speaker of the House, Steve Starks, our chairman, Stephen LISONBEE, our entire team, John Pierpont. If you all knew how much time this team had put in solving this issue, you'd be amazed. But great leadership with Steve, and Paul Edwards has been intricate on it as well. From the Pioneer Park Coalition's position, we are thrilled. In our mind, this is a continuation of a job a day that actually started in this room, and a lot of you know about Brandon Kitchen, who went from homelessness to home ownership as about a month ago. And it was truly an effort to lift and make sure that everyone has hope, has the opportunity to see the future. And when we talk with our sisters and brothers, they just want to have a glimmer of hope and a glimmer of a vision, what we're offering. Our Pioneer Park Coalition members are 100% dedicated to hiring the homeless who qualify and have those skills that we need. And we're also dedicated to helping the training. Garbett Homes has already started an initiative to hire Matt Caputo, one of our members who owns Caputo Deli is on top of it. And I think the biggest thing for us is that we know that once we get someone back into the workforce, it changes their whole lives. So we are thrilled. We couldn't be more grateful for the leadership of Steve, as I've mentioned to you, and we know that this will make a difference, and we are committed 100%.
Thanks, Scott.
Lieutenant Governor, I have a question for you.
Yes.
There was a community meeting near Liberty Park. Many of the residents there are concerned that the population maybe from Pioneer Park is shifting to Liberty Park. park. Do you have a comment on that?
Sure. So I think in every single press conference that we've done and every time we've talked to anyone in the press, we've addressed this. I'm happy to do it again. We knew from the very beginning that that would be a possibility, that as we crack down on the drug trade here, that would expand or move into other places in the state. And so we have dedicated resources, we have dedicated officers to respond to that. Now, one of the complaints was that dispatch for Salt Lake City was not taking those calls and responding to those calls. There's nothing I can do about that. The mayor said that she needed 30 days to try to fix that. What I will say is if you go to Operation Rio Grande.utah.gov, that's the website, Operation Rio Grande.utah.gov, we have a state number there that you can call. I apologize, I don't have it memorized, but it's on the website. And you can call, and we have DPS officers that will be dispatched immediately to go and deal with any of those situations. Now, it's really important to note, and I hesitate every time we have this conversation, that we're not equating homelessness with lawlessness, or we're not equating homelessness with criminal activity. There's no crime in being homeless. So one of the interesting aspects of this, and I think it's a net positive, is that we have had homeless individuals, people experiencing homelessness throughout the valley and in other counties forever. Because we're getting so much attention, we call a press conference and you all show up and it's amazing, people are starting to notice it for the first time, even though it's always been there. So we had complaints about some new structures out by the river that have been there for 10 years. Okay, they're not new, they've been there all along. And so I've likened it to kind of when you get a car and suddenly you see lots of people have cars just like the one you bought that you didn't notice before. It's kind of similar to that. And so it's good because I think other communities are starting to recognize that there is homelessness in other areas. But there has been an increase in some parts, and I suspect the park is one of those. And so we have additional resources set aside directly to dealing with that. And if you're not getting an answer from the Salt Lake City PD number, please call the state number and we'll get right on top of it. Right? Any other questions? All right, thanks so much for coming, everybody.